Hi you guys, it's Amy Gretchen. Welcome back to another video tutorial on my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be stamping metal blanks. So we're going to be taking these metal blanks that I have here. They're circular and you can get them in a variety of sizes. And we're going to be stamping a word onto it. You could stamp designs onto it. There's so many things that you can do with this, but that's what I wanted to show with you today. And it's really easy to make. The only thing that's a little bit difficult is the supplies. They're typically not something you're going to find in your home, so you are going to have to do a little investment. But if it's something that you really like, then I would go ahead and say invest, because they make really great gifts, especially for Christmas, which is coming up shortly. So let's go through the supplies and then we'll get started on making it. The first thing that we're going to want is metal blanks. And like I said, these metal blanks you can find in a variety of sizes. These happen to be 3/4 inch rounds and they are pretty thin. You can get them thicker. I believe these are 24 millimeters. And I will send you a link to where I get all my supplies. These are sterling silver. The second thing that is really important in this is the letters or the designs or whatever it is that we want to use for the stamping. These just happen to be letters and you may or may not be able to see this very well. Then we want a hammer because we need to be able to take the stamps and hammer them onto the metal. And we also want to punch a hole because we are going to make this into jewelry. And so we want to be able to punch a hole so that we can put a jump ring onto this so we can put it onto a necklace when we're finished with it. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we need to make a solution of liver of sulfur so that we can blacken this silver. And this liver of sulfur is pretty heavy duty stuff, pretty intense stuff, and so that's why I have these gloves. So when we're working with it, we can protect our hands. And we are going to want a cup of water, and this is a cup of cold water. And I like to use this Ziploc container that I can easily screw on and off because it keeps it safe, and then you can keep this and store this and you don't have to keep making it every time. You can just reuse it time and time again. So after we've blackened our metal, and you can see that I got water everywhere, we want to be able to scrub it off with these pads. You can see this has already been used before. And then we want to polish it off. This is a really fine cloth. So I will, like I said, share the links where I got all of these supplies. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to mix the solution of my liver of sulfur. And you guys, this is some really strong stuff. So we definitely want gloves. I have this paper towel down in case I splash. I'm going to use this Ziploc container that screws on so that I can store this, because once I've made this solution, I can easily use it again. So the first thing that I'm going to do before we get started, and don't mind my gloves that have holes in them, is I'm going to write liver of sulfur. So, and that was a little rough, but the reason why I'm doing it is so I can store it and, no one will mistake it for anything else, or I won't mistake it for anything else. In here I've put a cup of water, and then I'm just going to add a cap full of this liver of sulfur. And keep in mind, this is some seriously stinky stuff. It smells like rotten eggs, so you may want to do this in a well-ventilated area. And that is it. I'm going to close it up and I'm going to set it aside and just let it sit there. And then I'm going to move on to the fun part, which is the next step is to get our blank, our metal blank, and we want to punch a hole so that this can be a charm. And I'm just going to eyeball a little ways down, kind of what looks right. And I think I'm going to do this with a marker just so I can see it a little bit better. We don't want it to be too close so that it will break, make the metal fragile, but we don't want it to be too far away either. So kind of just eyeball it. And you don't have to put too much pressure to get that off. Okay, so there's my hole. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down from the hole and I'm going to make a mark. And remember, any mark that I make is gonna be erased when we put it in the liver of sulfur. It's just gonna get tarnished away and we're gonna rub it away, so it doesn't matter. And so I've made like a cross hatching, and then I'm going to make another line right below it, just a little ways down, because this is where I want to actually do the stamping on this line, so that when I stamp, the word ends up being center instead of, if I stamped on the center line, it would be above, and I actually want it to be a little bit below. So there we go. And remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. This is definitely a handmade item. So I'm going to just move that out of the way. And since my word has 5 letters, I'm just going to pick the middle one, which is I. And this can be a little bit tricky. I would encourage you, if you've actually never done this before, and you're probably watching this tutorial if you've never done this before, to, when you buy the metal blanks, or you could even just do this on a mat, or, you know, one of those self-healing mats, or they have like just even a piece of paper or something. I would just practice lining up your letter and then stamping it down, because it can be a little bit tricky. I get down really low, and what's really great is if you put the stamp onto its side like this, you can see a reflection in the metal, so you can kind of see where you want it to be. And you just kind of line it up and then cross your fingers. And you just want some medium pressure. It doesn't have to be too much, and I'm happy with the way that turned out. So let's look for T. That's the next one I want to do. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of look at the side, and then I'm going to get down low, and I'm going to look at the bottom to see that it's kind of lined up. And I think the trickiest part, quite honestly, is just making the spacing work. But if these are a little crooked or a little bit off, that is the charm of handmade. And this, for instance, I don't think this really stamped very well, or it needed a little bit more. And if that's the case, it's really easy just to get it right back onto the exact spot, because you've kind of engraven into it, so that stamp wants to fall into that same spot. And I'm having a hard time getting the one at the bottom. So there, got it. Feel happy about that. All right, so H is next. And I'm just going to do the same thing, where I'm looking at the reflection to kind of get the right spacing and get it so it looks right. And there we go. I'm happy with that. I decided to go ahead and speed up the process of the next 2 letters, because this definitely takes some patience, some fiddling around getting the letters exactly where you want it. But I wanted to go back and reiterate something I don't think I made very clear. You definitely want to practice stamping these letters before you stamp them onto your blank, because once you make a mistake, that's it. You have to scrap it and start over, or else you have to try and work with the mistake. So you definitely want to practice before you go with and try it on your metal blank. So there are small sheets of metal that you can purchase, like copper sheets that don't cost very much, that you can purchase, that you can practice stamping on metal. You could also, like I was saying, use a self-healing mat. You could put like cardstock on top of it, and you could stamp onto that. The self-healing mat gives it a little bit of give, so it will allow for a little bit of impression. But that way you can kind of get a feel for how hard it is to line these things up, how hard it is to space it before you go directly onto your project. I'm just going to double check to make sure I like all the impressions, and I definitely like all the impressions. So the next step, and I hope that you could really see that. The next step, I'm going to bring over my liver of sulfur, and I'm just going to drop it in. And I'm gonna let it do its magic and tarnish that silver. In fact. Okay, so now we're back and I want to grab out our metal. And I'm just gonna kind of blot it off and seal this back up. And then, like I said, you can store this away somewhere safe and you know that little kids aren't gonna get to it. Okay, now I'm back and you can see this just a little bit better. It's totally black and the debossed letters are black as well. And what we want to do is we want to polish this up and make this really, really shiny. And then we want to allow the black to stay in the debossed letters so that they stand out. And it looks like we're not going to be able to get it done. If you took a cloth like this paper towel and you worked really, really hard, you could probably, I mean, you'd have to really work hard. You could use a steel wool as well, but then I feel like you have to work really hard to kind of get some of the notches off of the metal since this is such soft metal. So what I like to use are these pads, and I will have a link to where I got these. I don't even, to be honest, don't even know what they're called, but they feel a little like sandpaper, but not really. They're very, very, very fine. It's almost like cloth that has a little bit of a tooth to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start rubbing, and you can see right away what a difference it makes. It really pulls off the shine really, really fast. And I've tried this other ways, like I said, with a steel wool, and it takes time. So this is super, super easy. I would definitely invest in these pads. It just makes it so simple. And I'm just gonna keep scrubbing and scrubbing. And these gloves are a little annoying, but I like to keep it on because see how black the gloves are getting? It just gets all over your hands, and it's probably, you know, it's getting on that hand. I should have two gloves on. But I'm just gonna keep working and keep working. And I don't want to forget the back. The back is totally black, so we want to make sure that we are scrubbing that as well. And you can even put it down and scrub it off. And make sure to rotate your pad so that you're kind of getting a fresh area. And we're just going to keep working it until it's looking like the way that we want it to look. Oops. And I've used these pads on several, so you can use them on multiple charms. And it's interesting, I have found sometimes, I don't know why this is, that the back is sometimes harder to get clean, you know, harder to clean up than the front. All right, so now that we've got most of that black off, I'm just gonna take this off. This is bugging me. And I'm gonna bring over this cloth and I'm just gonna polish it up. And you can see that there's still a little bit of, there was still a little bit of black on there. And we're gonna polish it up until it looks pretty shiny and nice. So there you go. That is the finished product. Now all you have to do is put a jump ring in the top and put it on a necklace and you are good to go.
And don't forget, if you like this project and you'd like to see more tutorials, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.